Good morning. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Rishika Barua. The big breaking story we're tracking at this hour. The Maharashtra Assembly session has in fact begun. A floor test will be underway in just a short while from now as the Speaker entered the House. BJP MLAs gave him a rousing reception by chanting Jai Shri Ram slogans on the floor of the House. That's the latest update we have for you. Before we get you all the other updates, a quick check on the top headlines. The Maharashtra government floor test underway in just a short while from now. Team Uddhav MLA Santosh Bangar, who voted in favour of Uddhav Thackeray's speaker candidate just yesterday, has now joined the Shinde camp. 12 MLAs abstained in the speaker election, and in a further setback for Uddhav Thackeray, Shinde has been reinstated as the Shiv Sena's legislative leader by the speaker. Thackeray camp moves Supreme Court over the speaker appointing the Shiv Sena whip. Plea over recognizing Bharat Gogwale as the Sena whip, and this plea is now going to be heard on the 11th of July along with the main accused. Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde speaks exclusively to NDTV ahead of the trust vote. He claims the support of 166 MLAs. Also, splitting with Uddhav Thackeray, he said it was a matter of ideology. So these are the top headlines that we're tracking from Maharashtra. Meanwhile, like I said, the Maharashtra floor test is going to be underway in just a short while from now. This really is the countdown to the final battle. That, of course, on your screens is Rahul Navrekar, the MLA, BJP MLA from Kolaba, who's been elected as the new Maharashtra Assembly Speaker. And shortly after his election, he in fact reinstated Eknath Shinde as the leader of the legislative party of the Shiv Sena. And there's, of course, a huge row over that reinstatation since Uddhav Thackeray had removed him, from the legislative party post of the Shiv Sena. So the battle really now is going to be over who claims control over the Shiv Sena. Let's just try and listen into what's happening in this assembly.
मत विभागणीची प्रोसेस चालू करत आहोत. ज्या सदस्यांना प्रस्तावाच्या बाजूने मतदान करायचे असेल त्यांनी सभागृहात माझ्या उजव्या बाजूला आपल्या जागेवर बसावे व ज्यांना प्रस्तावाच्या विरोधात मतदान करायचे असेल त्यांनी सभागृहाच्या माझ्या डाव्या बाजूला बसावे. प्रस्तावावर मतदान घेतेवेळी अनुकूल असतील ते सर्व सदस्य प्रथम उभे राहतील. प्रत्येक सदस्यांनी ज्या जागेवर ते उभे आहेत त्या जागेवरून आपले नाव व अनुक्रमांक वाचावा. त्याप्रमाणे नोंद घेण्यात येईल. त्यानंतर सदस्यांनी आपल्या जागेवर खाली बसावे. त्यानंतर प्रतिकूल असणाऱ्या सदस्यांसाठी देखील हीच कार्यपद्धती अवलंबण्यात येईल. आता मतमोजणीला सुरुवात होण्यापूर्वी 5 मिनिटं व आवश्यक वाटेल 10 मिनिटं घंटा वाजवण्यात येईल. त्यानंतर सभागृहाचे सर्व दरवाजे बंद करण्यात येतील. आता बिल बाजूला आहे ती आता बेल एकदा बंद झाली की मला फक्त हे वाचायचं इथपासून ते इथपर्यंत.
All right, so that of course was the opening remark by Rahul Navrekar, the newly appointed Speaker of the Maharashtra Assembly. He is a BJP MLA from the Kolaba constituency who was appointed just yesterday as the Speaker, and the election of the Speaker really was a crucial semi-final, a litmus test in a certain sense for the Shinde-Fadnavis government, and the floor test after winning the Speaker's election yesterday now is a mere formality, at least as far as the number game is concerned. But the big breaking story there on your screens, live pictures from the floor of the Maharashtra Assembly, where the Shinde-Fadnavis government will now be proving its majority. So this is the 4-day-old Eknath Shinde government formed with the aid of the BJP after 2 weeks of high political drama that has unfolded in Maharashtra, with MLAs going from Surat to Guwahati to Goa and finally arriving back in Mumbai on Saturday. Now, this is appearing to be a mere formality now, given the fact that Team Shinde already has the numbers. They've managed to successfully elect BJP MLA Rahul Navrekar as a Speaker yesterday. And in some of the key decisions that have already happened, one of course is the fact that there was a reinstatement of Eknath Shinde as the legislative party leader of the Shiv Sena after Uddhav Thackeray removed him from the post. Also, the chief whip of the Sena has in fact now been appointed by the Speaker, and the Uddhav Thackeray faction has in fact moved the Supreme Court over the Sena whip appointment. Now, this is a plea that has been just filed in the Supreme Court over recognizing Bharat Gogavle as the Shiv Sena Speaker, and this is a plea that the Supreme Court will now be taking up on the 11th of July, along with the main disqualification case that's going to be taken up. Of course, there was a plea for an urgent listing in this matter. That was something that was denied, with the court saying that it's only going to take this up on the 11th. Let's get you live updates now from what's happening on the floor of the House. You can of course see those pictures on your screens, but we know that there has been a last minute switch really that has happened, which is interesting. The numbers as far as the Shinde-Fadnavis camp, as you can see those through there on your screens, Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Ministers concerned, only appear to be growing. All right, let's go right across to our team of reporters tracking every detail and development of this big story, from the floor of the Maharashtra Assembly to the developments that are taking place in the Supreme Court. Saurabh Gupta and Arvind Gurusekar are now live with us. Saurabh, to you first. What's happening on the floor of the House? How long before the floor test is underway?
Well, as of now, we can say, the floor test will be underway. Head count will begin now. MLAs supporting Eknath Shinde will sit on the Speaker's right side, and those opposing, of course, and in the opposition will, of course, be on the left. MLAs who don't want to vote can stand. Voting to begin in the next 5 minutes. My colleague Sohit Mishra is reporting from inside the Assembly, and Uddhav Thackeray also has arrived. He's, of course, one of those who's likely to vote against this whip, which the Speaker has recognized within the Assembly. But remember, Arvind will explain to you what happened in the Supreme Court, because ultimately all of this is going to land up in the courts. Now, yes, the Supreme Court has ordered a status quo. In spite of that, the Speaker has actually...
All right, we have breaking news. It's coming in, Saurabh. Sohit is reporting, in fact, that the head count has begun.
संभाजी शिंदे 1,
देवेंद्र गंगाधरराव फडणवीस 2,
गुलाबराव रघुनाथ पाटील 3,
उदय रवींद्र सामंत 4,
चंद्रकांत बच्चू पाटील 5,
राधाकृष्ण एकनाथराव विखे पाटील 6,
सुधीर सच्चिदानंद मुनगंटीवार 7, बबनराव भिकाजी 5 मते 8, रेवो किसनराव बागडे 9,
गणेश रामचंद्र नाईक 10,
Ganesh Naik from Navi Mumbai.
भरत शेठ मारुती गोगावले 11,
11 votes now counted. Deepak Kesarkar, the spokesperson of the rebel camp, again. Dadaji Bose, former agriculture minister in the Uddhav Thackeray government, all with the rebel camp. Ashish Shelar, again senior BJP leader. Someone who's seen as close to Amit Shah, Ashish Shelar. What you see is, of course, the trust vote. The head count for the trust vote as the opposition asks for a division of votes taking place in the assembly, so that we have exact numbers. The numbers, of course, of MLAs who voted, how many in favor, how many against. Abdul Sattar, a former congressman who joined the Shiv Sena before the 2019 elections. Shambhuraj Desai, again Shiv Sena rebel. Again, Jayakumar Raval was a minister in the Devendra Fadnavis government between 2014 and 2019. So what you see is, of course, the division of votes in the trust vote that is taking place in the Maharashtra Assembly, the all-important trust vote. Now, while this might seem like a formality, it's not, because remember, there are a lot of issues that are going to be decided later. Whips, who's the leader, who's recognized as the whip, all of that is, of course, in the Supreme Court. But at this point, that all-important trust vote taking place in the Maharashtra Assembly with a division of votes and a head count. And, you know, right now you can see Rebel Sena MLAs and BJP MLAs all voting at this point. 38 votes so far counted.
शिवेंद्र सिंह अभयसिंह
संतोष लक्ष्मणराव बांगर 41.
All right, Saurabh Gupta, of course, talking us through those numbers as the head count has begun in the Maharashtra Assembly Trust vote. Saurabh, very interesting. You're saying these are, this is not just a mere formality. Break it down for our viewers. How really do the numbers stack up? At the moment, Uddhav Thackeray clearly appears to be at the losing end. The Eknath Shinde camp has only grown from strength to strength as far as numbers are concerned. And how crucial is, the hearing in the Supreme Court going to be? What is the bearing on all of that, on what we are seeing?
Well, whose whip is recognized, whose whip is not, disqualification proceedings. Is the disqualification proceedings in the earlier set, which was, initiated by Narhari Zirewal, the Deputy Speaker then, is that valid? Will the Supreme Court uphold that? Is Rahul Narvekar's decision which seems to be in contrast to the status quo ordered by the Supreme Court, valid? Is Bharat Gogavle the valid Shiv Sena whip, or is it Sunil Prabhu, who's been appointed by the Thackeray camp, or the Parliament legislative party leader? All of these questions have gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court and the Election Commission will probably be deciding on these issues. So clearly what you will see is that, yes, this might seem like a formality, but in all likelihood, this is only a part of the drama that we've seen in Maharashtra, drama that's likely to continue. What you're seeing now is the division of votes. We're bringing you these live pictures from the Maharashtra Assembly for our viewers who are watching, and for those who are just tuning in, what you see is the division of votes taking place in that all-important trust vote that's taking place inside the Maharashtra Assembly.
Right, and last minute wins there for Eknath Shinde, as well as, of course, this counting of MLAs has in fact begun. The opposition was actually seen hooting when Santosh Bangar supported Eknath Shinde in the trust vote. He, of course, joined Shinde camp only today morning. Yesterday, in fact, he voted for Uddhav Thackeray's choice of speaker. Today, he's moved to the Shinde camp. So, there's a lot of hectic political activity, back-channel talks that are still underway, despite the fact that Eknath Shinde camp is comfortable with the numbers.
Well, you know, Rishika, like I said, it's not only about the numbers. Yes, numbers play a very important role in democracy, but this is about political legacy, political survival, political, legacy of Balasaheb Thackeray. Who's the rightful person to carry that out? Who is with the Shiv Sena? Who's the real Shiv Sena? These are questions that are there. And, you know, the reason why you will see some of these U-turns by MLAs is because, remember, the speaker who was elected yesterday has, in the middle of the night, almost at midnight or whatever, late night, has recognized the rebel camp as the Shiv Sena whip. Now, what does that mean? That if MLAs, if his decision is upheld in the court, which it's likely already been challenged in the court, you saw those arguments which my colleague Arvind will talk about. When that happens, you know, there is a whip. And no MLA wants to face disqualification because that means re-election and they can't contest. So there are very, very strict, rules, and that is something that you will see now because, the key question also is like, Aditya Thackeray will of course vote with the Thackeray camp. Will then there be disqualification proceedings? Will Balasaheb Thackeray's grandson Aditya Thackeray face disqualification proceedings? Because, of course, Eknath Shinde now claims to be the Shiv Sena, and that's been recognized by a BJP elected, BJP-backed and rebel camp-backed speaker who was elected. So there are all these political combinations. This is about politics. This is much more than just the trust vote, and that's what we've been trying to explain at this point.
Right. So, Saurabh, just for the benefit of viewers watching these live proceedings from the Maharashtra Assembly that you're reporting on, over 50 votes to Chief Minister, over 70 votes, I beg your pardon, to Chief Minister Shinde. What happens after the head count? Procedurally, what are we seeing? And, what happens next?
Well, at this point, this is, of course, an ongoing process. The head count is happening inside the assembly, and this is, of course, at this point taking place inside the Vidhan Bhavan, and you're seeing that head count because that has been demanded by the opposition. But this will, in a sense, give us an exact picture of, what is going on in the assembly, and that is something that will decide also on the future. So you are obviously this is going to be the floor test division of votes, which will give us an exact picture of the numbers, but it'll also have to keep in mind that there has been a whip issued and been recognized by the speaker, and the speaker's authority is within the house is considered sacrosanct, and of course it's also upheld by the courts in multiple judgments. So when you have a situation like this, even though the speaker is expected to act impartially, in today's political scenario, neither speakers, speakers also, and obviously there is always the allegation that even governors, are not fulfilling their constitutional role of acting impartially. So, in a scenario like this, there are several, procedures that might seem archaic, but they are important in the sense that, like for now, what you see, this division of votes, it's very important. It will give you an exact record, and this is all being video recorded, I believe, of who has voted which way. So, in that sense, it's an important record as well. And when the Supreme Court hears these matters on the 11th, all of these records will be in handy. So, what you'll see is, of course, a situation where all of this is important, not just from the point of view of the trust vote, but also what happens in the court on the 11th of July.
Right, and the opposition, of course, Saurabh, what about their numbers at the moment? And we've been getting those reports of a lot of booing and hooting. As of course there are several MLAs now from their camp who switched over. I mean, all of the Shiv Senics who are supporting Shinde were on the other side. 2 weeks ago. So, you know, what's the mood really like on the floor of the House?
Well, you know, obviously, those in government are sitting very comfortably. You know, in fact, opposition shouting ED when Pratak Sarnaik supports Eknath Shinde. And Sarnaik replied saying, I will give you. But remember, Mr. Sarnaik is, of course, one of the MLAs who had said in a letter, this is all a matter of record, that let's go with the BJP, then we will not face ED action.
Yes.
So his, of course, switch is something that the opposition is saying, like pointing like, look, ED.
Yes.
And he had written in a letter. We're not now talking about allegations, counter allegations. It's a written document. He had written to Uddhav Thackeray saying, let's go with the BJP so that, you know, we don't face these ED cases. And this is, of course, and that is why Mr. Sarnaik probably, you know, has chosen to side with Eknath Shinde, is what the Shiv Sena has been saying. So yes, you'll see multiple shouts of ED because opposition has said that the ED has been playing a role behind the scenes in a sense of, you know, ensuring that MLAs defect and this misuse of central agencies is something that the opposition has flagged multiple times. So this is, of course, an ongoing process. And, you know, even, for example, yesterday when Yashwant Jadhav also is facing an ED case. So at that time when his wife MLA voted, they said ED. When Sarnaik, of course, Pratap Sarnaik voted, of course, he's on record saying in a letter, so mentioning the ED. So, you know, obviously these are expected, you know, lines when this vote is taking place. And what you now see is, of course, you know, the Shinde camp, you know, slowly inching towards the majority mark, and I believe they're over 120 now. 125 is, of course, 125 125 is, of course, the number. So they're inching towards the majority mark, as you can see, and you know, soon they will cross the majority mark. And once they cross the majority mark, the floor test would have served its purpose, even though for the counting of votes later and to see who has voted which way, this entire process will happen for all the MLAs. And of course you will see them stand up one by one and do this head count, as you see in the pictures from the Maharashtra Assembly. So Yashwant Jadhav. So yesterday, of course, Yamini Jadhav had faced this ED, you know, jibe. And of course, what we're seeing is Congress leaders Ashok Chavan and Vijay Wadettiwar are not in the House. So Ashok Chavan is a former chief minister, and he was here yesterday. He gave a bite here yesterday. So my colleague Sohit is reporting that Congress leaders Ashok Chavan and Vijay Wadettiwar are not in the House. That's a development. Will they come in later? Because I think the doors have been closed for the head count. So this is something that needs to be seen. Where have they gotten stuck? Have they not come? Have they been locked out? Which means will they not be able to vote? All of these things are going to be now, you know, be questioned. Where is Ashok Chavan? Where is Vijay Wadettiwar? You know, this is all, you know, a question that we'll answer. So, big news. That is Ashok Chavan of the Congress, Vijay Wadettiwar of the Congress, don't seem to be in the House. Where are they? And why aren't they there? That's a big question. So, what you see is now, of course, the BJP plus Shinde camp is slowly heading towards the majority mark, very close to the majority mark. So 144 MLAs, of course, halfway mark, majority mark crossed. The government has proved its majority on the floor of the House. 144 MLAs and actually 145 now. So yes, the majority mark has been proved on the floor of the House. The big news, Eknath Shinde camp, along with the support of the BJP, crosses the majority mark with 144 MLAs. And that, of course, is proved on the floor of the House. That's the latest development from the floor test. Live pictures of the floor test from the Maharashtra Assembly on your screens right now. This, of course, is something that is the whole purpose of the floor test, to prove the majority. That's been done. But you might ask, why is the vote still continuing, head count still continuing? Well, there are multiple things. One is to see how many MLAs have in total voted with the Shinde camp, how many have rebelled, how many have voted against the whip of the Shinde camp, how many have voted against the whip of the Thackeray camp, how many MLAs are of the Congress have voted with the Congress, how many MLAs of the NCP have voted with the NCP, how many MLAs of the Congress have abstained, how many MLAs of the NCP have abstained, how many MLAs have not voted at all. All of these questions are, of course, going to be answered because of after the completion of this head count. Meanwhile, in some other news also, Rishika, let me remind you, Uddhav Thackeray is expected at the Shiv Sena Bhavan in a while this afternoon. So obviously that will also be important to track as
and
part
Saurabh,
of the
the big breaking story as you're reporting is on expected lines. The numbers as far as Shinde Fadnavis camp are concerned were a mere formality. They sailed through with the appointment of Rahul Navrekar as speaker yesterday, and the government, the new BJP Eknath Shinde government, comfortably passing the halfway mark on the floor of the Maharashtra Assembly. So that crucial litmus test in a certain sense is now over. And the 144, well, was the halfway mark, the magic number that they needed to get past, and they've passed that and more. And as Saurabh and Sohit are reporting, there are more and more MLAs who we are now learning have switched sides, some as early as this morning. So the Eknath Shinde government comfortably winning the trust vote on the floor of the Maharashtra Assembly. The battle for the Shiv Sena is what is going to be next, and that's going to be in the Supreme Court on the 11th of July. We're getting you minute by minute updates on the floor test in the Maharashtra Assembly. Rahul Navrekar speaking. It's over to you.
अनुक्रमांक उच्चारून आपल्या जागेवर खाली बसावे.
नरहरी सीताराम झिरवाळ 1
अजित अनंतराव पवार 2
जयंत राजाराम पाटील 3
Ajit Pawar, Jayant Patil, all senior NCP leaders.
4
Chhagan Bhujbal, all top NCP leaders. Dilip Valse Patil, former Home Minister. Balasaheb Thorat, senior Congress leader, now voting. Bhaskar Jadhav, again from the Shiv Sena. Uddhav Thackeray comes.
आदित्य रश्मि उद्धव ठाकरे 8.
So of course Aditya Thackeray voting against the whip that the current speaker has recognized as the whip. Does this mean there will be disqualification proceedings against him? That is a question. Remember, all of this is going to land up in the Supreme Court, but yes, you can expect disqualification proceedings against him and against him as well. So here is the political scenario in Maharashtra. Balasaheb Thackeray's grandson, Aditya Thackeray, who's an MLA from Worli, who's a Shiv Sena leader, has now voted against the whip issued by the rebel Shiv Sena camp led by Eknath Shinde, who claims he is the Shiv Sena. These matters are in court, and of course the court will decide. But a lot of these matters, as Arvind will tell you, will be infructuous also, and that is of course also something that we'll have to keep an eye on. But at this point, you can see all these MLAs now of course vote. Aditi Thackeray, of course, an MOS in the previous government, and also senior NCP leader Sunil Tatkarey's daughter, also an MLA. She's a young politician.
रवींद्र दत्ताराम वायकर 24
Ravindra Vaikar again voting. along with the Uddhav Thackeray camp, a very close aide of the Thackerays, very, very close. He's of course known to be very close to Matoshri. Ravindra Vaikar, Shiv Sena MLA, voting with the Thackeray camp.
संजय शकुंतला बाबुराव बनसोडे 25. विठ्ठल माने 26.
Just how have tables turned in the last 2 weeks? From the Shinde camp facing the threat of disqualification, it's now actually, Aditya Thackeray, the MLAs who are still supporting Uddhav Thackeray, who now face the threat of a disqualification, with, of course, the speaker appointing a Sena whip from the Shinde camp. This is something that has been contested by Uddhav Thackeray faction in the Supreme Court. That hearing is going to take place on the 11th of July. There is a plea that's been filed over recognizing Bharat Gogavle as the Sena whip. And, this is going to be extremely interesting to see how this plays out and just how quickly tables have turned.
नितीन भिकनराव टाले 36.
वैभव विजय नाईक 37.
Saurabh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Saurabh, just a quick comment on how quickly tables have turned. Uddhav Thackeray faction now facing the threat of a disqualification. Those Shiv Sena MLAs, are now perhaps, going to be facing that threat of disqualification. And until now, it was, the MLAs with the Shinde camp who actually had the disqualification sword hanging on their necks. But of course, now with the speaker recognizing Bharat Gogavle as the Sena whip, this is something that the Thackeray camp has contested in the Supreme Court, but tables have indeed turned very quickly.
Well, disqualification proceedings have not yet begun. That is the speaker's prerogative, and the speaker has not yet decided. So we cannot say that disqualification proceedings have begun, but yes, they do face the threat of disqualification should the speaker choose to exercise his authority within the House. Now, there is a legal rider to this, and the legal rider is that the Shiv Sena camp led by Uddhav Thackeray claims it's their whip. So the other side is saying that, look, all the MLAs who are that side are defying the whip, so they should be disqualified. And earlier, of course, they had started disqualification proceedings against a few of these MLAs who switched over to the rebel camp. Then, of course, that was the Deputy Speaker Narhari Zirwal who moved those proceedings. So right now, everything that you see is being done. The process will have to be completed, but it is also likely to be a record for the courts to peruse once they start on hearing and deciding what is going on. You'll see these affidavits and counter affidavits, and Arvind, of course, will be tracking all of those things, so he'll be able to explain better. This morning also, the Shiv Sena camp led by Uddhav Thackeray moved the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has said July 11th, but a lot of these matters will become infructuous if the Supreme Court simply upholds the Speaker's authority. But then what about those 19 MLAs or those earlier MLAs who were facing disqualification notices earlier? They've already voted, they've already been part of this process, something that the Shiv Sena had moved the court against, but the court had refused to stop them from being. Let's just listen in. Let's just listen in what's happening.
हेड काउंट होईल, बाकी आपण भाषण सगळी नंतर करू. इन्कम टॅक्स राज्यपाल जरुरी आहे. या पुढे घ्या. पुढे घ्या. आता 56.
अमित सुभाषराव जनक 57.
With head count resumes after that brief sort of, I think, opposition from the MPs. 58 opposition votes so far, so obviously, somebody from the opposition raising the point, but the speaker saying let the head count be completed and the head count proceeding.
So Saurabh, what we could actually hear very briefly was one of the MLAs, cracking a joke on ab tak 56. His number was 56, and that was a little bit of commotion and some laughs being exchanged there in the opposition camp. Very interesting to see this little dynamic happening.
Well, I mean, you know, this is a city that's very closely linked to films, and Ab Tak Chappan is also that famous film, so I think that little bit of a filmy reference, but the speaker, you know, saying that let's please only stick to the head count now, and that head count proceeding. Yes, there will be moments like these. We are a filmy city, and you know, these references will keep cropping in between. But yes, the more important and the more serious part, Rishika, is like what I was saying, that you might ask that they've already got the majority, so why continue with this head count? And the reason is that all of this is also a record for the courts to produce when they're hearing all of these matters. So it's an important part of the process that's taking place, and this also gives you a clear picture, a very, very clear picture of who's exactly voted which way, who's abstained, who's not voted. All of these things are going to be decided, you know, on the basis of this head count and the record that's there. There's also, I'm being told, there's video recording of all of this. We are, of course, watching these live pictures from the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly as the trust vote is underway inside the assembly.
How do we read these abstentions?
I think
So, Samajwadi,
60
two
votes,
Congress,
I think, now for the opposition camp.
so two Congress MLAs have abstained. Samajwadi Party is also going to be abstaining today, and you know, they're sitting, but they're not participating in the trust vote. There were 12 MLAs who abstained yesterday from the Speaker's election as well. Saurabh, how do we read these abstentions?
You know, Rishika, if the names of these Congress MLAs who've abstained, as my colleague Sohit is reporting, that there are two Congress MLAs who are not there, and they are Ashok Chavan and Vijay Wadettiwar. These are big wigs in the Congress. They are heavyweights. Ashok Chavan is a former chief minister. His father, you know, Shankar Rao Chavan is also a former chief minister. A well-known Congress family with a long history of Congress politics in them. If there is some sort of shift there, we don't know why Ashok Chavan has not come though. Why he's exactly not there, but Vijay Wadettiwar again, you know, again a Congress big Congress family. So what has happened as far as you know is something that will be important to note, because so let's see what is happening there, because you know a total of 164 MLAs support the Eknath Shinde in trust vote. That number is 164. Narvekar voted yesterday. He's now the speaker, so he's not voting. So otherwise the total would have been 165, as Bangar, Santosh Bangar joined the Shinde camp today. So that is, of course, what my colleague Sohit is reporting from inside the house. Samajwadi Party also, they have two MLAs, Rais Sheikh and Abu Asim Azmi, who are, you know, they are abstaining. But you know, I think what we need to really find out and focus on is where is Ashok Chavan and where is Vijay Wadettiwar? Why are they not in the house on such an important day? Ashok Chavan, a former Congress chief minister, Rishika, no less.
Yes.
You know, so really important to find out where they are, what was so important, or what is the really important circumstance or unavoidable circumstance that they could not be in the house, or were they locked out earlier? What has happened? We don't know. But Congress leaders Ashok Chavan and Vijay Wadettiwar are not in the house. My colleague Sohit has
there's a story there as well,
reported.
Isn't it, Sohit? And isn't it, Saurabh, as Sohit is reporting that they're not there? You know, you all have also been reporting on how there were 12 abstentions yesterday, Samajwadi Party abstaining today as well. You know, this proves yet another political point, doesn't it?
संदीप रवींद्र शिवसागर 93.
Yes, you know, and really at the root of all of this is, you know, we need to decide, is defection, should they be allowed or not? Many have now felt, many political scientists, many political observers now feel that, you know, the anti-defection rule has practically been rendered, you know, quite irrelevant, given the kind of numbers of MLAs we see shifting sides. So perhaps if it has to be a question of defection, any MLA who wants to switch sides should resign and face elections, is perhaps what is the, what the methodology should be. That's a larger political debate, larger constitutional debate, not to be, focused on now. But obviously at this point, the trust vote, Eknath Shinde's government has sailed past the majority number by a comfortable margin. And they've also, I can see again, I can hear something happening. So let's just.
आता तटस्थ सदस्यांनी आपल्या जागेवर उभे राहावे.
All MLAs have been asked to stand in their places. Eknath Shinde wins trust vote 164 to 99.
All right, so this is the big breaking story we're tracking at this hour. The head count in the trust vote for the Maharashtra government has been completed. It is a 164 for Eknath Shinde. Would have been 165 actually, but Rahul Navrekar is now the speaker, and opposition camp has got 99 votes, with several key abstentions now raising eyebrows and questions. But the trust vote there has, the head count in the trust vote has been completed. Chief Minister Eknath Shinde has proven his majority in the floor test on the floor of the House in the Maharashtra Assembly. This is the big story that we're tracking. So Shinde winning the floor test very comfortably. Saurabh, as expected, this was a formality. The precursor, the semi-final yesterday was the election of Rahul Navrekar as the speaker, and after smooth sailing, there weren't going to be any surprises, today. The surprises, however, have been, the few last-minute sort of switches that we've seen, including an MLA who voted with the Thackeray camp today, walking in with Eknath Shinde today, and voting in favor of Eknath Shinde. And those two key Congress MLAs who've abstained from voting today are, of course, a big story to track. But just speaking of the opposition camp, let's not forget what Sharad Pawar has said today. He's, of course, said that, as Eknath Shinde takes charge, brace for midterm polls, Saurabh.
आता मी या प्रस्तावावरील मतविभागणीचा निकाल जाहीर करतो.
Yes, brace for midterm polls, because this is a government that's not going to last, is what Sharad Pawar has said to his party men. His party will also get the leader of opposition post now. NCP is the party with the largest number of, legislatures. So they will get the leader of opposition post. Who will get that post is interesting to note. So that is, of course, that is what you hear now is the speaker announcing. Let's just cut to these pictures, because I think Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis might speak now.
अभिनंदनाचा प्रस्ताव.
He's saying. So again, a proposal to congratulate.
बोला. अध्यक्ष महोदय, या ठिकाणी
Fadnavis speaking to congratulate.
इन्फॉर्मेशन माझ्या रेकॉर्डवर आहे. ते माझ्या रेकॉर्डवर आहे. तुम्ही इन्फॉर्मेशन काय ती सांगा. ते सगळं माझ्या रेकॉर्डवरती आहे, सभागृहाच्या पटलावर आहे. तुम्ही तुमची माहिती काय आहे तेवढी द्या. ही माहिती देणारी मी रेकॉर्डवरती आहे. मुख्यमंत्री
अध्यक्ष महोदय, या सभागृहाने
Big news rather, I know of course we are on these proceedings, but there's some really big news. Ashok Chavan, Vijay Wadettiwar, Zishan Siddiqui, Sangram Jagtap were present yesterday. Today they aren't present. These are, of course, people who are from the Congress mostly. Zishan Siddiqui, of course, the youngest MLA perhaps in the Maharashtra Assembly, not voting with his party. We'll have to see where that came from. Zishan Siddiqui, youngest MLA in the Maharashtra Assembly, also from the Congress. Baba Siddiqui's son, close to Priya Dutt. All these former Congress leader Priya Dutt. Of course, she was also an MP. Zishan Siddiqui's father, Baba Siddiqui, is very close to her. and Zishan Siddiqui also not voting with the Congress. We'll have to see where they are. Why have they abstained? Why have they not voted with their party? Ashok Chavan is really the big surprise here because now we are listening to Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis speak inside of the House. We'll come back to this big breaking story of these Congress MLAs missing. But now let's listen into what Devendra Fadnavis is saying, and I'll translate what he's saying. Ashok Chavan has reached now. He wasn't able to reach at the time of the vote is what we're being told. So he got delayed. What a day to get delayed.
ज्या सदस्यांनी या प्रस्तावाच्या बाजूने मतदान केलं त्या सदस्यांचे आभार तर मानतोच.
The MLAs who voted in favor of this proposal, we thank them. But those who, without really making it clear, so Devendra Fadnavis is congratulating with it Vijay Wadettiwar, saying thank you for not coming, not voting with the Congress. So yes, that drama continues. Devendra Fadnavis there insinuating that maybe Vijay Wadettiwar did not come in earlier. They've come in now, but what a day to come in late.
मी मनापासून आभार मानतो. खरं म्हणजे अध्यक्ष महोदय, मुख्यमंत्री एकनाथरावजी शिंदे एक कट्टर शिवसेना.
Chief Minister Eknath Shinde
शिवसेना
कट्टर शिवसैनिक.
बाळासाहेब ठाकरे
is a hardcore Shiv Sena.
विचारांचे पाईक
Shiv Sena founder Balasaheb Thackeray
आणि कर्मावर अढळ निष्ठा असलेले अशा प्रकारचं व्यक्तिमत्व
believed in his work,
एकनाथरावजी शिंदे. ते कुशल
and
संघटक
that of course is Eknath. That of course is who Eknath Shinde is.
ते जनतेचे सेवेकरी. शिवसेना प्रमुख वंदनीय बाळासाहेब ठाकरे आणि धर्मवीर आनंद दिघे साहेब या दोघांच्या प्रभावामुळे 80च्या दशकामध्ये साधारण
under the tutelage of Shiv Sena founder Balasaheb Thackeray and Dharmavir Anand Dighe,
आणि एका
Shinde started working in the Shiv Sena under the tutelage of these two prominent Shiv Sena luminaries.
वेगवेगळ्या जबाबदाऱ्या पार पडत आज राज्याचे
He
मुख्यमंत्री
took up many
या
responsibilities,
ठिकाणी त्यांनी जबाबदारी सांभाळली.
and today he has become the chief minister of the state and proved his majority on the floor of the House.
1984 मध्ये शिंदे साहेबांची
In 1994, Dharmavir Anand Dighe
त्या ठिकाणी नियुक्ती केली आणि त्यानंतर
Shinde was appointed the Shakha Pramukh of Kisan Nagar in Thane
त्यांनी सहभाग घेतला.
by Dharmavir Anand Dighe, who was of course at that point the tallest Shiv Sena leader in Thane.
त्या ठिकाणी ते आंदोलन करायचे, अनेक केसेस लागायच्या, अनेक वेळा कारागृहात जावं लागायचं, बेल व्हायची. पुन्हा नव्याने दिघे साहेबांनी आदेश दिला की आपलं सर्वस्व सोडून
Shinde has had faced cases, been held, but as soon as he got an adesh or a command from Anand Dighe, he got back on the job.
धान्य उपलब्ध करून देण्याचा विषय असेल, टंचाईच्या काळात पामतेल उपलब्ध करून देण्याचा विषय असेल, या सगळ्या अडचणीच्या काळामध्ये छोट्या छोट्या गोष्टींकरता देखील प्रशासनाच्या विरोधात त्या ठिकाणी आंदोलन उभं करायचं आणि त्या माध्यमातून सामान्य माणसाला न्याय द्यायचा, हे देखील त्यांनी या ठिकाणी करून दाखवलं. खरं तर 2004 साली ते तेव्हाच्या एकत्रित ठाणे
He has shown that you can deliver justice to the common man.
कारण त्यानंतर 9 साली कोकणी पाचपाखडी हा मतदारसंघ झाला. असे 2004 पासून सलग 4 वेळा महाराष्ट्राच्या विधानसभेमध्ये ते या ठिकाणी पोहोचले. खरं म्हणजे
He has been in the Vidhan Sabha for 4 terms.
माझ्यासोबत मंत्री म्हणून देखील त्यांनी काम केलं पण याहीपेक्षा सगळ्यात
He has worked as a minister with me earlier.
तर त्या
But if there's something that stands out in all of this,
जे काही आंदोलन झालं भुजबळ साहेब आपण त्यामध्ये होतात, या आक्रमक आंदोलनामध्ये एक प्रकारे त्यांनी एक नेता म्हणून आपला दबदबा त्या काळात तयार केला. 1986 साली
he emerged as a leader
सक्रिय सहभाग घेतला आणि
in the agitation in 1996.
सोबत 100 वेगवेगळे कार्यकर्ते होते. 40 दिवस बेल्लारीच्या जेलमध्ये.
This is about the border issue.
आमच्या
the border issue with Karnataka, the Belgavi issue.
कारावास भोगला आणि त्यातून एक मोठ्या आंदोलनामध्ये त्यांनी सक्रिय सहभाग घेतला आणि जवळजवळ त्यांच्या सोबत 100 वेगवेगळे कार्यकर्ते होते. 40 दिवस बेल्लारीच्या जेलमध्ये आमच्या सीमा प्रश्नाच्या संदर्भात त्यांनी कारावास भोगला आणि त्यातून एक मोठं व्यक्तिमत्व हे त्यांचं तयार झालं. खरं तर त्यांचा प्रवास हा राजकीय प्रवास जर आपण बघितला तर 97 साली ठाणे महानगरपालिकेत नगरसेवक म्हणून निवडून आले. मग मनपामध्ये सभागृह नेते झाले, त्यानंतर आमदार झाले, ठाणे जिल्ह्याचे जिल्हा प्रमुख झाले.
He became a corporator, he became a MLA, he became a Jilla Pramukh.
ज्यावेळी 2014 मध्ये मी मुख्यमंत्री झालो त्यावेळी अल्पशा काळाकरता विरोधी पक्षनेते, पण त्यानंतर पुन्हा आम्ही एकत्रित आलो आणि MSRDCचे मंत्री म्हणून त्यांनी कार्यभार स्वीकारला. काही लोकांना असं वाटायचं की MSRDC यांना दिली म्हणजे कुठेतरी यांचे पंख छाटले, पण ज्या व्यक्तीमध्ये कर्तृत्व असतं त्याला पद महत्वाचं नसतं. तो जे काही त्याच्या हाती असेल त्यातनं विश्व निर्माण करू शकतो.
MSRDC, his wings were clipped, but if someone has the intention, they don't need a post.
त्याचं नाव आता सध्या बाळासाहेब ठाकरेंच्या नावाने आहे. या महामार्गाचा
Balasaheb Thackeray, Hindu Hriday Samrat, Nagpur, Mumbai, Super Communication Expressway.
आणि त्यांना मी घेऊन बसलो.
He brought about the realization of the protest. I sat with him.
त्यांना सांगितलं की स्पेशल पर्पज व्हेकल मला पाहिजे. MSRDC स्पेशल पर्पज व्हेकल आहे, त्यामुळे हे काम आपण MSRDCच्या माध्यमातून करू आणि आम्ही त्याचा पूर्ण प्लॅन तयार केला.
I had suggested that we do it through a special purpose vehicle to implement this project.
आणि आज
And in 9 months he completed land acquisition for the project. And today that project,
हे सगळं होत असताना
and one part of that
ग्राउंडवर जाऊन
is of course almost completed.
त्या व्यक्तीने तिथल्या समस्या सोडवल्या, त्या ठिकाणी संपूर्ण
That groundwork for that project
दूर केले आणि ते काम सुरळीत होईल
and removed all the obstacles for that project
त्या व्यक्तीचं नाव
and ensured that that work on that project progressed. The man behind that is Eknath Shinde.
ही दाखवून दिली. मग
He has showed how his work is.
मिसिंग लिंक असेल, ज्या मिसिंग लिंकच्या माध्यमातून
The Mumbai-Pune expressway missing link, which will reduce distance between
एक
the ships, the Pune and the Mumbai city.
हा त्या ठिकाणी तयार
That
होतोय.
project also is there.
तेही एक महत्त्वाचं
There's an
काम असेल.
iconic bridge that's being built there, and that also is an important work that Eknath Shinde has taken up.
असे अनेक प्रोजेक्ट खूप सांगता येतील.
Bandra Versova Sea Link,
प्रोजेक्ट अतिशय चांगल्या
a lot of
प्रकारे
these projects,
त्या ठिकाणी त्यांनी execute
all these
केले.
projects have been taken up in a very
त्यांना आरोग्य
efficient
खात्याची
way.
जबाबदारी देखील मिळाली आणि आरोग्य मंत्री म्हणून देखील अतिशय उत्तम काम हे त्यांनी केलं. विशेषतः आरोग्य हा त्यांचा अतिशय आवडता विषय आणि त्या विषयाकरता
Health is a issue that's very close to him, and he's done good work in the health ministry also.
आरोग्य सेवा पोहोचली पाहिजे. आरोग्य विभाग
He has reached health services towards the common man.
पायाला भिंगरी लावून प्रत्येक जिल्ह्यामध्ये तालुक्याच्या ठिकाणी छोट्याशा PHC पर्यंत स्वतः जाऊन रिपोर्टिंगवर नाही.
He has visited public health centers by himself.
त्यांनी अतिशय चांगल्या प्रकारे या व्यवस्था उभ्या केल्या. डॉक्टरांच्या नियुक्त्या फास्ट झाल्या पाहिजेत. सामान्य माणसाला न्याय मिळाला पाहिजे अशा प्रकारचं काम हे त्यांनी केलं. खरं म्हणजे एकनाथराव शिंदे एक वेगळं रसायन. मी त्यांना अनेक वेळा म्हणतो की तुम्ही झोपता कधी हे समजत नाही, पण तुम्ही जेवता कधी हे समजत नाही. 24/7.
I have often told him I don't understand when you sleep and when you eat. He's a 24/7 leader who works all the time.
त्यावेळी 24/7 नाही.
Whenever there's a crisis,
22/21.
not only would he work
3 दिवस सलग काम करताना ते या ठिकाणी दिसतात.
he could continuously work for 3 days continuously.
मिळाल्यानंतर माणुसकीचा भाव आपण हरवतो. पण एकनाथराव शिंदेमध्ये
Often when people get posts, people don't stop working, but he continued working and even working harder after he got his post.
म्हणजे ही शिकवणच धर्मवीर आनंद दिघे साहेबांनी त्यांना दिली की ज्याचा कोणी नाही त्याचे दिघे साहेब होते. आणि दिघे साहेबांनी हीच शिकवण शिंदे साहेबांना देखील दिली. आणि म्हणूनच आज सामान्य माणसाकरता ते काम करताना दिसतात. जेव्हा आम्ही आपत्ती व्यवस्थापनाची मिटिंग घेतली त्यावेळेस सगळे सांगत होते की आता आमची लाईन 24/7 चालू राहणार. आम्ही 24/7 आपत्ती व्यवस्थापनाकरता तयार असणार. त्यास मुख्यमंत्र्यांनी सांगितलं तुम्ही तर आहेच, पण मी देखील तुम्हाला 24/7 उपलब्ध आहे. तुम्ही अर्ध्या रात्री मला सांगा, मी आणि उपमुख्यमंत्री आम्ही दोघंही तुमच्यासोबत या ठिकाणी राहू. मला आठवतं की आमच्या सरकारच्या काळात नंदुरबारहून जो आदिवासींचा मोर्चा आला होता, आमचे गिरीश महाजन त्यावेळी त्या मोर्चाच्या करता समोर गेले होते. पण त्याची व्यवस्था वेगवेगळ्या ठिकाणी ठाणे जिल्ह्यामध्ये किंवा हे आपल्या सरकारवर मोर्चा आणतायत, पण हे आपले बांधव आहेत, त्यांच्या काही समस्या आहेत त्या आपण ऐकून घेतल्या पाहिजेत. आणि म्हणून त्यांची व्यवस्था
He will always look into the problems people have and then bring
या
it
ठिकाणी मोठ्या
to the forefront and solve it.
नंतर गिरीश भाऊंनी स्वतः जाऊन त्या ठिकाणी जे काही त्यांचं म्हणणं होतं ते ऐकून घेतलं. पण सरकार हे संवेदनशील असलं पाहिजे.
All right, Devendra Fadnavis speaking in the assembly after the Chief Minister Eknath Shinde led government wins the trust vote. We'll continue to stay on this story after this short break and bring you all the live updates from the Maharashtra Assembly right after this break.
Let each child have the benefit of quality education from primary level to higher education. This promise is delivered through sweeping reforms of the school system, especially at the grassroots. Mana Uru Mana Badi program is a game changer with an allocated budget of over rupees 7,289 crores. Today, Telangana tops the country in the residential educational system with a total budget of over rupees 6,000 crores per annum. Spending rupees 1,25,000 on each student yearly, this will benefit over 5 lakh students with excellent education. The state also offers a scholarship of rupees 20 lakhs per beneficiary to pursue higher studies overseas. By bringing government schools up to standard, students can now compete with and surpass those in expensive private schools. The results are clear to all. Telangana schools have seen a drastic reduction in dropout rates. Armed with a quality education, Telangana's talented Gen Next can reach for the stars.
This is NDTV and you're watching NDTV 24/7. In partnership with Mind, India's first super app.
बाहेर पडत नाही. त्यांना सांगितलं आता थोडं स्ट्रक्चर्ड करा.
Well, live proceedings from the Maharashtra Assembly as Eknath Shinde, the Chief Minister, wins the trust vote on the floor of the Maharashtra Assembly after leading a rebellion from the Sena and displacing the Uddhav Thackeray-led government. Now, of course, he's being spoken about by his Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, who was the Chief Minister earlier. Many have questioned how this arrangement will work, including NCP Chief and Supremo Sharad Pawar, who said that his party should prepare for elections in 6 months. But today, of course, we see a very confident Eknath Shinde winning the trust vote, and also Devendra Fadnavis now speaking in the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly after that trust vote. Let's just listen in to what Fadnavis is saying as we translate what he's saying in Marathi.
हा जो सगळा पेशन्स आहे याच्यामुळेच मला असं वाटतं की
And to quote Devendra Fadnavis, what he's
आज जो काही त्यांची ही जडणघडण आहे ती त्यातनंच या ठिकाणी झाली आहे. खरं तर
he has worked very hard to reach where he is today.
आणि ठाण्यामध्ये
He was born in Satara.
त्याच्या वैयक्तिक जीवनात देखील
and he worked his life in Thane,
सामना त्यांना करावा लागला.
and he has faced many hardships in his personal life.
नेतृत्व उभं केलं आणि अतिशय दुःखद घटना त्यांच्या वैयक्तिक
He
जीवनात
built up the leadership in Thane.
अपघातामध्ये गेली.
He faced a tragedy early in his life when he tragically lost 2 of his children.
जीवनातलं आपल्या सगळं संपलं अशा प्रकारचा भाव
He was completely broken.
त्यांच्यामध्ये आणि संपूर्ण कुटुंबामध्ये तयार झाला होता. त्यावेळी धर्मवीर आनंद दिघे साहेबांनी त्यांना त्या ठिकाणी ऊर्जा दिली, त्यांना प्रेम दिलं आणि
धर्मवीर आनंद दिघे
त्यांच्यातलं खरं नेतृत्व
took him under his wings
आणि त्या नेतृत्वाने शेवटी
and gave him a lot of work to keep him busy at that time.
केला पाहिजे अशा प्रकारच्या भावनेतनं एक मोठं कार्य या ठिकाणी सुरू केलं. त्यामुळे त्यांना शेतीची आवड आहे
and thereby he started and continued his long innings.
याचे बगीचे त्यांनी लावले आणि जेव्हा थकवा येतो
Strawberry plantations, he's worked in agriculture too.
गावी जाऊन पुन्हा तयार होता आणि अलीकडच्या काळात त्यांना थकवा मिटवण्याकरता नातू आहे. त्या नातवामुळे त्यांचा थकवा हा आपल्याला मिटताना दिसतो. पण एक सामान्य कार्यकर्त्याची कशा प्रकारे काळजी ते घेतात याचं एक उत्तम उदाहरण म्हणजे
He's an example of how a samanya karyakarta or an ordinary worker can take up responsibilities.
5 मिनिटं तरी 6 तास प्रवास करत कार्यक्रमात आले, 10 मिनिटं कार्यक्रम केला, पुन्हा 6 तास प्रवास करत त्या ठिकाणी चिपळूणला गेले. ही कार्यकर्त्याच्या प्रती जी काही एक प्रेम भावना आहे ही अत्यंत महत्वाची आहे. खरं म्हणजे एक गोष्ट अजून आपण या ठिकाणी नमूद केली पाहिजे की लहानपणी गरिबीमुळे त्यांना शिक्षण सोडावं लागलं आणि त्यामुळे त्या काळात 10वी पर्यंतच ते शिकले. परंतु त्यानंतर संधी मिळाल्यावर वयाच्या 56व्या वर्षी त्यांनी BA ची डिग्री मिळवली आणि 77% गुण घेऊन त्यांनी ग्रॅज्युएशन पूर्ण केलं. त्यामुळे मला असं वाटतं की स्वतः शिकू शकले नाही म्हणून मुलाला त्यांनी डॉक्टर केलं. पण हा जो काही निर्धार आहे हा निर्धार मला असं वाटतं अत्यंत महत्वाचा आहे. खरं म्हणजे जेव्हा महाविकास आघाडीचं सरकार आलं त्यावेळीच मी सांगत होतो की हे सरकार अनैसर्गिक, हे सरकार टिकणार नाही. माझी खूप टिंगलटवाळी झाली. मी एक कविता म्हटली होती, मी पुन्हा येईल. त्याच्यावर माझी खूप टिंगलटवाळी अनेकांनी केली. मी आलो आणि यांनाही घेऊन आलो, एकटा नाही आलो, यांना सोबत घेऊन आलो.
So Devendra Fadnavis is saying that I was made fun of for saying I'll return. That slogan, "Me Pune Yail," but I have come back, and I have not come alone. I have come back with Eknath Shinde.
आणि माझा बदला एवढाच आहे की मी त्यांना माफ.
He says those who
राजकारणामध्ये अशा गोष्टी मनावर घ्यायच्या.
Those who embarrass me, those who tease me, I will take revenge. But my revenge is that I forgive them.
आणि म्हणून एकच गोष्ट या ठिकाणी सांगू इच्छितो, दुनिया के सारे शौक पाले नहीं जाते, दुनिया के सारे शौक पाले नहीं जाते, कांच के खिलौने हवा में उछाले नहीं जाते, कोशिशें करने से जीत होती है आसान, क्योंकि हर काम तकदीर के भरोसे टाले नहीं जाते. आणि म्हणून जरी या ठिकाणी आमच्याकडे मॅन्डेट असताना आम्हाला विरोधी पक्षात बसावं लागलं, तरी आम्ही कधी त्यातनं विचलित झालो.
Those who made us sit in the opposition,
सातत्याने संघर्ष
in
केला,
spite of us having the mandate,
जनतेचे प्रश्न
we
मांडले.
never hit back. We fought
कोरोनाचा
against
काळ
them.
असो, कुठलाही काळ असो, जनतेमध्ये राहिलो, कधी स्वतःची पर्वा केली नाही. आणि म्हणूनच मला असं वाटतं,
Even during the Corona times, we were with the people. We didn't care about ourselves.
आम्ही सत्तेकरता काही करतोय, आमचा विचारच हे सांगतो की सत्ता हे आमचं साध्यच नाही, सत्ता आमचं साधन आहे. सामान्य माणसाच्या जीवनामध्ये सामाजिक आर्थिक परिवर्तन करण्याकरता एक उपकरण म्हणून सत्ता आम्हाला हवी आहे. आणि म्हणूनच मी सांगितलं, ज्यावेळेस सरकार जाईल त्यावेळेस मी पर्यायी सरकार देईन. आणि आमचे नेते,
We had said that when this government falls, we will provide an alternative.
यांनी या
And our
देशामध्ये
leader,
दाखवून दिलं
Honorable Modi ji,
की आमच्याकडे सत्ता
who has
महत्त्वाची
shown
नाही
the
आहे.
country
आम्ही जो या
that power is
ठिकाणी
not important to us.
आमची खंत होती, ती एवढीच खंत होती की जनतेनं मॅन्डेट दिलं, तर ते मॅन्डेट दिल्यानंतर आमचं मॅन्डेट मिळवून देण्याचा प्रयत्न
But
झाला.
if we get the
म्हणून
people's
मोदीजींनी
mandate,
सांगितलं, हो आम्ही सरकार बनवू, आम्हीच शिवसेना प्रमुख बाळासाहेब ठाकरेंच्या एका सच्च्या कार्यकर्त्याला मुख्यमंत्री बनवू. आणि जनतेनं जे मॅन्डेट दिलं होतं, शिवसेना भाजपला जे मॅन्डेट दिलं होतं, त्या मॅन्डेटचा सन्मान आम्ही करून दाखवू. आणि
so
माझ्या
we
नेत्यांनी
are, of course, keeping the mandate that Shiv Sena chief Balasaheb Thackeray, Shiv Sena is becoming a chief minister. We are honoring that mandate. If the government, if the party that makes me, has given me the most important post, asks me to sit at home, I will sit at home also.
मुख्यमंत्री एकनाथराव शिंदे यांच्या पाठीशी पूर्ण ताकदीने आणि क्षमतेने मी उभा.
But right now I can say, I will say that I strongly stand behind Eknath Shinde, the chief minister, with all my support.
हा प्रयत्न या ठिकाणी मी करणार आहे. आणि कुठल्याही प्रकारे या ठिकाणी त्यांच्यात माझ्यात कधी दुरावा कोणाला दिसणार नाही, कधीही पॉवर स्ट्रगल कोणाला दिसणार नाही, कुठेतरी कुरघोडीचं राजकारण कोणाला दिसणार नाही. कारण कधी आम्ही सोबत होतो, कधी वेगळ्या बाकांवर होतो, पण आमच्यातली मैत्री ही मात्र नेहमी कायम राहील. ती कधीच आमची मैत्री या ठिकाणी मोडली नाही. आणि म्हणून खरं तर मी एवढंच सांगू शकेन, मी कोणाला उपमा देत नाहीये, नाहीतर कोणीतरी त्याला उपमेला जोडेल. पण एवढंच सांगतो, जेव्हा जेव्हा धनानंदाची सत्ता निरंकुश होते, तेव्हा तेव्हा कुठल्या तरी चाणक्याला चंद्रगुप्त शोधावा लागतो. आणि ही निरंकुश सत्ता ही खाली आणावी लागते. त्यामुळे हेच आज या ठिकाणी होताना दिसत आहे. आणि मग अशा या सगळ्या परिस्थितीमध्ये एकदा सरकार बनल्यानंतर मला असं वाटतं की ती मोकळ्या मनाने स्वीकारली पाहिजे. खरं म्हणजे मला आनंद आहे की माननीय शरद पवार साहेबांनी देखील संघाची भूमिका, संघाची शिस्त या संदर्भात गौरवपूर्ण उल्लेख केला. माझा उल्लेख करताना गौरव, मला आनंद आहे त्याचा. त्यांनी मला संघ स्वयंसेवक, मी आहेच, मला अतिशय आनंद आहे आणि त्यांनी गौरवपूर्ण उल्लेख केला असं मी त्या ठिकाणी समजतो. त्यामुळे खरंच मी त्यांचेही अतिशय मनापासून आभार मानतो. मनसेचे नेते राज ठाकरे यांनी अतिशय सुंदर पत्र लिहिलं. खरं म्हणजे मी त्याला दुसऱ्या दिवशी उत्तर द्यायचा विचार केला, पण त्यांच्यासारखे शब्द मला सुचले नाहीत आणि म्हणून मग मी त्यांना फोन करून त्यांचे आभार मानले आणि लवकरच त्यांचे, कारण अजून तब्येत ठीक नाही आहेत, ते नुकतेच बाहेर आले आहेत, अजूनही घरीच आहेत, त्यांची भेट देखील घेणार आहे. मला असं वाटतं की आपण सगळे राजकीय विरोधक आहोत, आपण शत्रू नाही आहोत. मगाशी आता काही लोक इकडच्या लोकांवर ईडी ओरडत होते. हे खरंच आहे, ही मंडळी ईडीमुळेच आली आहे. फक्त ती ईडी म्हणजे एकनाथ आणि देवेंद्र आहे.
People were saying that ED, but they've come because of ED, Eknath and Devendra.
आणि असं नाही आहे, असं आहे, राजकारणामध्ये दोन्ही बाजू असतात. आमच्या एकेका नेत्यावर 30 खटले टाकले हो. आणि काय केस माहितीये, आमच्या एका खासदारावर तर केस अशी टाकली, म्हणजे त्या खासदाराची जर तुम्ही संपत्ती बघितली, त्याच्यावर अशी केस टाकली की माझी गाडी देवदर्शनाला किरायाने नेली होती आणि 5,000 रुपये दिले नाही, म्हणून त्याच्यावर 420ची केस लावली आहे. गिरीश भाऊंवर तर मोकाच लागणार होता, बरं झालं असतं लागला असता तर. म्हणजे असं नाही, पण जाऊ द्या. हनुमान चालीसा म्हटली की घर तोडणार. मी तर सांगितलं, मी नशीब
But they couldn't break my home because I have a government home in Mumbai and my Nagpur home is completely legal.
कित्येक लोक आहेत, कोणी कोणाच्या बद्दल वाईट लिहून ते चुकीचं आहे, पण लिहिल्यानंतर एखादी राजकीय पोस्ट टाकल्यानंतर 15 दिवस, एक महिना लोक जेलमध्ये आहेत. कुठल्या लोकशाहीचं आपण
jail for political posts for 15 days.
इकडे मात्र सांगायचं दिल्लीमध्ये
What democracy is this?
याच्यापेक्षा वेगळी तानाशी काय असू शकते. एक महिना तुम्ही जेलमध्ये ठेवताय. ते हनुमान चालीसा वाचतो म्हटलं, हनुमान चालीसा वाचण्याचा कार्यक्रम मागे घेतला तरी 12 दिवस जेलमध्ये. महिला खासदाराला 12 दिवस जेलमध्ये. मला असं वाटतं की याच्यावर स्वतंत्र चर्चा करू. त्यामुळे काही इकडच्या व्यथा असतील तर काही इकडच्या व्यथा आहेत. प्रयत्न असा केला पाहिजे की दोन्हीकडच्या व्यथा ज्या आहेत त्या कशा दूर करता येतील. आणि मला एका गोष्टीचा आनंद आहे आणि मी नेहमी गर्वाने सांगतो की महाराष्ट्रामध्ये दक्षिण भारतासारखी स्थिती नाही आहे. महाराष्ट्रामध्ये आम्ही आजही एकमेकाच्या घरी जाऊ शकतो, एकमेकांसोबत जेवण करू शकतो, एकमेकाशी गप्पा मारू शकतो. दक्षिणेतल्या राज्यांमध्ये सत्तारूढ पक्ष आणि विरोधी पक्ष हे एकमेकाच्या रक्ताचेच त्या ठिकाणी म्हणजे खून के प्यासे जसं हिंदीत म्हणतो, अशा प्रकारची परिस्थिती आहे. तिथला इतिहास ऐकला तर यांनी याच्या आजोबाला मर्डर केला होता, त्यांनी त्याच्या काकाचा मर्डर केला होता. सुदैवाने अशी स्थिती आपल्याकडे नाही. अशी स्थिती कधी येऊही नये. सत्तारूढ पक्ष असेल, विरोधी पक्ष असेल, भूमिका बदलतात. 2.5 वर्षापूर्वी वेगळी भूमिका आमची होती, तुमची नंतर वेगळी भूमिका होती, परत आमची वेगळी भूमिका आहे. त्यामुळे सत्ता येते आणि जाते. सत्तेचा अहंकार कधी डोक्यात जाऊ नये. आणि जो व्यक्ती सत्तेवर असतो, मी माझ्या स्वतःलाही सांगतोय, जो व्यक्ती सत्तेवर असतो त्यांनी, म्हणजे आमचे प्रमोदजी नेहमी असं म्हणायचे की जेव्हा धर्मराज युधिष्ठिर हे स्वर्गाकडे गेले आणि त्यांना यक्ष प्रश्न विचारले, त्यावेळी यक्षाने एक प्रश्न त्याला विचारला की धर्मराज युधिष्ठिर, जगातलं सगळ्यात मोठं आश्चर्य काय सांगा. त्या धर्मराज असं म्हणाले की जगातलं सगळ्यात मोठं आश्चर्य हे आहे की जो जन्माला येतो त्याला एक दिवस जायचं आहे, त्याला माहिती आहे, पण तरी तो असा जगतो की जणू काही तो अमरत्व घेऊन आलाय, त्याला कधी जायचंच नाही आहे. मग प्रमोदजी म्हणायचे की राजकारणातही असंच आहे. जो निवडून येतो त्याला माहिती असतं 5 वर्षानंतर आपल्याला परीक्षा द्यायची आहे पण अनेक वेळा तो असा वागतो की जणू काही जन्मभराकरता तो निवडून आलाय. त्यामुळे आमदार असो, मंत्री असो किंवा मुख्यमंत्री उपमुख्यमंत्री कोणी असो, प्रत्येकाला हे लक्षात ठेवण्याची आवश्यकता आहे की उद्या लोकांनाही समोर जायचं आहे आणि
everybody has to think that tomorrow they have to face the people.
आणि म्हणून मी या निमित्ताने या नवीन सरकारच्या वतीनं एवढं आश्वस्त करू इच्छितो,
I can assure you on the behalf of new government,
बदल्याच्या भावनेनं
we will not act against anybody in
सरकार काम
vengeance.
करणार नाही. ज्या मेरिटच्या गोष्टी आहेत, मी काल देखील मला विचारलं सगळं स्थगित करणार का, सांगितलं की काही गोष्टी स्थगित होतील पण मेरिटवर होतील, मेरिट शिवाय होणार नाही. जे चांगले निर्णय आहेत ते सगळे निर्णय आम्ही कायम करू, उलट ते निर्णय कसे पुढे नेता येतील त्याचा देखील आम्ही निश्चितपणे प्रयत्न करू. आणि म्हणून मला असं वाटतं की या संपूर्ण वाटचालीमध्ये एक शिवसैनिक आज राज्याचे मुख्यमंत्री झाले आहेत आणि त्यांचा एकूण जर आपण सगळी कारकीर्द, सगळा स्वभाव, या सगळ्या गोष्टी बघितल्या तर मला विश्वास आहे की राज्यामध्ये एक डेफिसिट तयार झालं होतं.
I believe that one Shivsainik is now the CM. State
ही माझी टीका नाही आहे, कोणावरही नाही आहे, पण तरी देखील लोकांना आपले नेते आपल्यात हवे असं सातत्याने वाटत होतं.
when people think that we have our own leader there.
हा नेता जनसामान्यांना उपलब्ध असेल, हा
This
नेता
leader is available for all the common public.
महाराष्ट्राच्या कानाकोपऱ्यात उपलब्ध असेल.
Not only in Mumbai, but far-flung areas of the Maharashtra, he is available
आणि शेवटच्या
for them.
माणसाचे प्रश्न सोडवण्याचा प्रयत्न हा नेता या ठिकाणी करेल. मगाशी जसं मी सांगत होतो, भलेही शेवटच्या कॅबिनेटमध्ये तुम्ही काही निर्णय घेतले,
You have taken a decision in your last cabinet,
राज्यपालांचं पत्र आल्यानंतर
but
जोपर्यंत विश्वास मत पात्र होत नाही, प्राप्त होत नाही, तोपर्यंत कॅबिनेटची मीटिंग घ्यायची नसते हा संकेत आहे.
till
तथापि तुम्ही
you
कॅबिनेटची
don't
बैठक
have the
घेतली,
majority, you shouldn't
त्या
have
बैठकीत
had
काही निर्णय देखील घेतले,
cabinet meeting.
मग तो संभाजीनगरचा
You took
असो, तो
decision
धाराशिवचा असो,
of changing
किंवा
names
तो
of
दिवा पाटलांचा असो,
Shambhajinagar,
किंवा इतरही काही निर्णय
Pune.
असतील.
You have taken many decisions like that.
जरीही ती कॅबिनेट संकेताप्रमाणे घेता येत नाही, तरी तुम्ही निर्णय घेतले असले तरी मी मुख्यमंत्र्यांची चर्चा केली आणि मुख्यमंत्र्यांनी सांगितलं आपली भूमिका तीच आहे, आपण त्याच भूमिकेचे आहोत.
We
त्याच्यामुळे
also
काळजी
have
करू
the
नका.
same view.
तुमच्या शेवटच्या कॅबिनेटचे
We
निर्णय
are
ना
not
कॅबिनेटमध्ये घेऊन
changing
ते एफर्म
your
करून
decision.
आणि
We
ते
will
निर्णय
take, will
लागू
confirm your
करण्याचं काम
decision you have
हे
taken in
सरकार
the
या
last
ठिकाणी करेल.
cabinet. This
हा
government
विश्वास तुम्हाला देतो.
will stand
आणि
with the
पुन्हा
decision
एकदा
taken by the last
संपूर्ण
cabinet by
सभागृहाच्या
you.
वतीनं माननीय मुख्यमंत्र्यांचं अतिशय मनपूर्वक अभिनंदन करतो आणि विरोधी
I
पक्षाला
welcome
देखील या ठिकाणी
the
विनंती
new
करतो
Chief
की
Minister
आपलं
of
सहकार्य आम्हाला
Maharashtra,
द्या.
and I'll request
आपलं सहकार्य
to the opposition, please
ते सहकार्य आम्हाला
support
मिळावं
our
एवढीच विनंती करून
government.
माझं बोलणं
Please
संपवतो.
work with our
हा खरं तर 23 अन्वये आपण विश्वासदर्शक ठराव घेतलेला आहे. यावरती सन्मान्य उपमुख्यमंत्र्यांनी आभार प्रदर्शनासाठी भाषण केलं आहे. तरीही माझ्याकडे काही नावं आली आहेत, त्यांना बोलायचं आहे. त्यामुळे आभार व्यक्त करण्यासाठी हा
given the vote of
आपण
thanks.
चान्स देत
Now I
असल्यामुळे
have received many
प्रत्येक
requests
पक्षातल्या
for
एका
the-
व्यक्तीने बोलू दे.
for
सन्मान्य
speaking,
अजितदादा पवार.
but every leader, every party leader will
Adhyaksh
have the
Mahoday.
opportunity for the one speaker to on their behalf.
आता राज्याचे उपमुख्यमंत्री देवेंद्र फडणवीस साहेबांनी एकनाथराव शिंदे मुख्यमंत्री या नात्याने जे सरकार त्यांच्या नेतृत्वाखाली आलेलं आहे त्याच्या विश्वासदर्शक ठरावाच्या बद्दलचा आज विषय होता आणि तो मंजूर करण्यात आलेला आहे. त्याच्याबद्दल त्यांनी आपली मत या ठिकाणी व्यक्त केलं. अध्यक्ष महोदय, अनेक वर्ष मी देवेंद्रजींना या सभागृहामध्ये भाषण करत असताना बघितलं, परंतु देवेंद्रजी नेहमीचा उत्साह तुमच्या चेहऱ्यावर दिसत नव्हता. तुमचा जो जोश असायचा मी मुख्यमंत्री असतानाही पाहिलं आणि इथं विरोधी पक्ष नेते पण असताना पाहिलं. त्याच्यामध्ये सगळे पिनड्रॉप सायलेन्स ठेवून ते तुमचं भाषण ऐकायचे. आज पण ज्यावेळेस आपण आज तुम्ही वकील आहात आणि वकिलीच्या पेशानी कसं हे योग्य आहे हे सांगण्याचा तुमचा प्रयत्न होता आणि कसं एकनाथराव शिंदेंनी आजपर्यंतची कारकीर्द ही दैदिप्यमान आहे हे पण सांगण्याचा प्रयत्न तुम्ही आता आपल्या भाषणामध्ये केला. खरं तर सभागृहाला मला सगळ्यांना एक गोष्ट माहिती द्यायची आहे की ह्यावेळेस जे काही विधिमंडळामध्ये आमदार निवडून आलेत त्या आमदारांच्या मध्ये जर सगळ्यात नशीबवान कोण असेल तर ते देवेंद्र फडणवीस.
All right, so those of course are all the latest updates from the Maharashtra Assembly. The floor test has been concluded. 164 votes for the Shinde-Fadnavis camp as opposed to 99 for the opposition. So it's been smooth sailing for the Shinde government. And Devendra Fadnavis was in fact speaking just a short while ago. We will of course continue to get you all the very latest from Ground Zero in Maharashtra. Short break here. We'll be back with a lot more.
Brought to you by The World Comes Together at Sharda University. So where are you? Admissions now open.
Let each child have the benefit of quality education from primary level to higher education. This promise is delivered through sweeping reforms of the school system, especially at the grassroots. Mana Uru Mana Badi program is a game changer with an allocated budget of over rupees 7,289 crores. Today, Telangana tops the country in the residential educational system with a total budget of over rupees 6,000 crores per annum. Spending rupees 1,25,000 on each student yearly. This will benefit over 5 lakh students with excellent education. The state also offers a scholarship of rupees 20 lakhs per beneficiary to pursue higher studies overseas. By bringing government schools up to standard, students can now compete with and surpass those in expensive private schools. The results are clear to all. Telangana schools have seen a drastic reduction in dropout rates. Armed with a quality education, Telangana's talented Gen Next can reach for the stars.
11,000 placements last year. At Amity, we are committed to nurturing passionate, hardworking and proactive professionals.
जरूरत के टाइम पर अगर लोन ना मिले तो क्या फायदा? पैसाबाजार.com पर जाओ और पाओ इंस्टेंट लोन सीधे अपने अकाउंट में. पैसाबाजार.com.
Helps beat sensitivity fast. Sensodyne Rapid Relief.
सोचे तो आप खुद से कहीं ज्यादा अपनी फैमिली के लिए एक भरोसे का साथ है
और कैसे भी समय में आपके भरोसे के साथ है मैक्स लाइफ इंश्योरेंस का 99.34% क्लेम्स पेड रेशियो. इंडिया के भरोसे का नंबर मैक्स लाइफ इंश्योरेंस.
मेरी कार का कितना मिल जाएगा?
वाओ. यस सर, OLX ऑटोज ही देता है आपकी कार का बेस्ट प्राइस.
क्या बात कर रहे हो?
यही कि OLX ऑटोज ही देता है आपकी कार का बेस्ट प्राइस. ये प्राइस नहीं, सरप्राइज है.
क्या बात कर रहे हो?
Visit olxautos.in now.
Good morning, India. Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on NDTV 24/7. Co-powered by The World Comes Together at Sharda University. So where are you? Admissions now open. If it's Chinese, it's mainland China. The new Hyundai Venue. Live the lit life. And Airtel Extreme Fiber. Plan starting rupees 499 only.
Welcome back. You're watching our continuous coverage of the developments in Maharashtra. Now, after 2 weeks of high drama, the floor test was finally held in the Maharashtra Assembly. It was smooth sailing for Eknath Shinde and Devendra Fadnavis's government as they have passed the floor test with 164 votes. 144, remember, was the halfway mark. So 20 more votes in favor of Eknath Shinde, and therefore smooth sailing for the new government to prove its majority on the floor of the House. The opposition's strength was further diminished even from yesterday's speaker election. The opposition strength now down to 99. There were 4 Congress MLAs who couldn't actually make it to vote. So this has been a very interesting development that we're reporting on as well. There's an absentee list, and Ashok Chavan and Vijay Vadetiwar in fact got late, ironically, and therefore they couldn't make it. But there is an absentee list that we have drawn up as well. There has also been abstentions that were reported yesterday, abstentions that have been reported today. However, even if you add those absentees into the numbers, it was still smooth sailing for the Eknath Shinde government. Now, a couple of important developments that I want to apprise our viewers. If you are just joining us on the broadcast, the big breaking story is that the Shinde government has comfortably won the trust vote on the floor of the Maharashtra Assembly with 164 votes. It was 99 for the opposition. However, the battle for this entire power tussle is not yet over because the Thackeray camp has moved the Supreme Court over the Sena whip, the new Sena whip that has been appointed by the newly elected Speaker Rahul Navrekar. There is a plea that has been moved in the Supreme Court over recognizing Bharat Gogavle as the Sena whip, and the Supreme Court will be hearing this plea on the 11th of June along with the main case. Could Aditya Thackeray and the other Shiv Sena MLAs who are part of Uddhav faction now face the threat of a disqualification? That really is the big question here. Our team of reporters, of course, have fanned out across key locations. Saurabh Gupta has been reporting live from the Maharashtra Assembly, and Arvind Gunasekar now joins us with the very latest. So, Arvind, while of course, this floor test is over, the story is really not over, because from the Maharashtra Assembly, the action is now really going to shift to the Supreme Court with that crucial hearing coming up on the 11th of July. Break down the details for us.
Uddhav Thackeray camp has moved Supreme Court challenging the newly elected Maharashtra Assembly Speaker's decision to recognize Bharat Gogavle, the Eknath Shinde rebel camp MLA, as the chief whip of Shiv Sena legislature party. In fact, in their petition, Uddhav Thackeray camp has contended that when Eknath Shinde challenged the deputy speaker's decision to recognize Ajay Chaudhary as the leader of Shiv Sena legislature party inside the assembly, Supreme Court did not stay that matter, and the matter is very much sub judice before the Supreme Court. When the matter is sub judice before the Supreme Court, the newly elected speaker could not have gone ahead and could not have recognized Eknath Shinde as the legislature party leader of Shiv Sena, and also Bharat Gogavle as the chief whip of legislature party of Shiv Sena, and that's why they have challenged this very decision of the speaker. Though they sought an urgent hearing before the Supreme Court in the next coming days, but Supreme Court said that the bench that heard this particular case is not sitting now, and that's why they said only when the bench sits, that's in the next week, sometime in July 11th, when that particular consent bench takes over the matter or hears this matter on July 11th, that's when this particular application can also be heard by the bench, and that's why Supreme Court has said that this very application moved by Uddhav Thackeray camp will be heard along with the main case, that is on July 11th.
All right, so the main case is going to be heard on July 11th. And Arvind, before we let you go, explain to our viewers and just break this down, very simply. What is the possible ramifications of this, 11th July hearing? Because there has been an appointment of a speaker. That speaker has now appointed a whip for the Shiv Sena from Eknath Shinde's camp. Eknath Shinde himself has been reinstated as, the legislative party leader after Uddhav Thackeray. So the battle really not so much about government anymore. The battle really now about appropriation of Bal Thackeray Shiv Sena.
Yeah, Rishika, if you could see the main petition that is pending before the Supreme Court, which will be heard on July 11th, the very prayer of this entire petition is that Eknath Shinde and 15 other rebel MLAs have challenged the disqualification proceedings that have been initiated by Uddhav Thackeray camp against them. If at all, if the Supreme Court finds that the Deputy Speaker in that particular case can go ahead with the disqualification proceedings, then the Supreme Court is sending the ball back to the Assembly Secretariat. Now with the new Speaker who has been elected, the Deputy Speaker does not have the power when it comes to the disqualification proceedings because Speaker has been elected. So the Speaker can go ahead and he can reject the disqualification proceedings. So that's one likely scenario. Or the second likely scenario, which the entire the Uddhav Thackeray camp is relaying in Supreme Court, is that not just this disqualification proceeding, they've also challenged all the subsequent actions that have taken place in the Maharashtra Assembly. In fact, they have also challenged, saying that all the 16 rebel MLAs against whom the disqualification proceedings are pending, they could not even have taken part in the floor test or in any kind of the assembly proceedings. In that case, the election of the Speaker is also being indirectly challenged before the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court puts everything back as on date, when the Supreme Court heard this matter on June 25th or 26th, that's when the entire issue will become tricky, whether Eknath Shinde should step down as the Chief Minister, because if the Deputy Speaker decides to disqualify him, then he cannot continue as the member from the date of June 22nd. And that's the one legal battle the entire Uddhav Thackeray camp is hoping for, but it looks so that it won't be such an easy battle for the Uddhav Thackeray camp here in the Supreme Court.
All right, so it's not going to be an easy battle for the Uddhav Thackeray faction in the Supreme Court, but needless to say, the action really, is going to be shifting to the Supreme Court. Arvind Gunasekar, thanks very much for joining us with the very latest. Like I said, the battle as far as the government in Maharashtra is concerned, has in a certain sense been concluded with the floor test and the numbers so comfortably stacked in favor of, Eknath Shinde and Devendra Fadnavis. It's now going to be a battle between the Shinde faction and the Uddhav faction for the appropriation of the Shiv Sena. I also want to quickly get a reaction from Niranjan Shetty, BJP Maharashtra spokesperson, and Jayant Manekar, senior journalist, joining us. Niranjan Shetty, to you first. It's been smooth sailing on the floor of the House for you.
Of course, I think the picture was totally clear yesterday itself. And I think there should not have been any doubt about the majority that needs to be proven by the Shinde and Mr. Fadnavis on the floor.
All right. The battle, however, is going to be in the Supreme Court now. Niranjan Shetty, with the Uddhav Thackeray faction moving the Supreme Court, they've contested the appointment of a chief whip by the newly appointed Speaker. So it's really not over, is it? What do you make of the Shinde faction versus the Thackeray faction now that's going to play out in the Supreme Court as to who really is the real Shiv Sena?
See, as per my knowledge of the anti-defection law, it is clear mandate that the 2/3 of the majority breaks away from a particular party, then it holds the majority, and it is the floor of the House where it is being decided. As far as the Deputy Speaker giving the ruling, when the government itself has lost the majority, our Solicitor General Tushar Mehta himself pointed out on behalf of the Governor itself that it was invalid decision to give a call in such matters. So when there is 2/3 majority and one faction is stating that they claim to be the original Shiv Sena. So I think in democracy, everybody has the right to go to the approach the whatever court of the law they want.
Right. You spoke of the anti-defection law, Niranjan Shetty. Therefore, before I bring in Jayant Manekar into the conversation, a quick reaction from you. How do you respond to critics who say that the BJP has effectively rendered this anti-defection law null and void? I mean, this is a law that clearly has no teeth left.
Yeah, I think, Rita, what we need to understand that all these members had disgruntled voice, against their own chief. He unheard almost 2.5 years. They themselves, you heard that Mr. Kesarkar speaking on your channels and other channels that, they raised their voice to their main chief about, how they were not getting some kind of money that needs to be done for the larger interest of the people's work. And in spite of falling to the deaf ears, they decided it. Now people can say that, we managed this or we operated this. But I don't think so in the history of this politics, as a student of politics also myself, I never seen that such a large group leaves any party and, and especially they leave the government and join the opposition and, come for the common cause.
Okay. Well, it is unprecedented, in more ways than one. And let's just take that to Jayant Menkar. Jayant Menkar, what we've seen happen over the course of the last 2 weeks is that the numbers, as far as the Shinde camp are concerned, have only grown. To the extent that the outcome of the floor test today after the Speaker's election yesterday was pretty much a foregone conclusion, something that had been established when Eknath Shinde was made Chief Minister. What do you make of this entire, transition that has taken place? And of course, now the battle really going to be for who is the real Shiv Sena?
Well, going by the constitutional provisions and going by the rules applicable for two-third defection and the role of the party and legislature, the party still belongs to Uddhav Thackeray because he's the party chief. And according to the Mahabaleshwar conclave of Shiv Sena, which was held in 2002, Uddhav Thackeray was made executive president when Balasaheb Thackeray was very much alive, and then later he became the party chief. So the party chief has every right to appoint, I'm using the word appoint, not necessary to elect at all. So appoint Ajay Chaudhary. First, Uddhav Thackeray had appointed Eknath Shinde, then he removed him and appointed Ajay Chaudhary. Now the problem is this, here only showing the numbers that we are with 39 and just in the afternoon development another one joined, so we are with 40 Shiv Sena legislatures. These 40 group led by Eknath Shinde, they are claiming that they are the original Shiv Sena, whereas according to even the constitutional provision, the party, that particular group leader is considered as the party leader who is appointed by the party chief. So Uddhav Thackeray has appointed Ajay Chaudhary. Now the problem is this particular battle will lead to Supreme Court. Supreme Court, as per what your correspondent has also said, this has put the hearing on 11th. But in the meantime, till 11th, already Eknath Shinde has taken over as the chief minister. And the proceeding may long even for 1 or 2 years. And during that span, though it may rather go in favor of Shiv Sena, but already the period of this assembly may be over. That's what happened even with the case of S.R. Bommai. Actually, S.R. Bommai's verdict came somewhere in 1999. But by that time, his tenure was finished. So actually, whatever the process that has been done, including when the disqualification, Shiv Sena has put the disqualification of 16 legislatures, which actually should have happened immediately.
Right.
Now that has been held back, and in place of that, the person who should be disqualified, according to the party, has taken over as chief minister.
Yes.
So this is all the problem. So and already, legally, some lacunas, some flaws, some grievous flaws are committed, which has been actively helped by the governor, which has been ratified, unfortunately, even by the speaker. And now we are discussing all these things again on the floor of in Supreme Court, again on 11th. But in the meantime, we have changed chief minister. So what is the value of this process? And if accidentally, if on 11th or within 1 or 2 months, the decision goes, say, in favor of Shiv Sena, will this entire 2 months process will be reverted back? That's what Abhishek Manu Singhvi argued.
Yes.
So, okay, technically we may feel that now 40 legislatures of Sena are with Eknath Shinde. But constitutionally, Eknath Shinde group has not so far merged with any party, which is essential as per the constitutional provision, which has not done. Even still, 15 legislatures are with Shiv Sena, and party chief has appointed one of them as group leader.
Yes,
So
but
in
you know,
this process,
but you know that's an important point. Niranjan Shetty, do you want to respond to that? You know, a lot of important points being made there by Jayant Menkar on due process. I mean, how can you go ahead and appoint a chief whip, somebody who's different or from another camp, as opposed to who the party chief, who's still Uddhav Thackeray, has appointed? They haven't formally broken away. They haven't formally, joined the BJP either. They are claiming that they are the real Shiv Sena. So while you don't have a clear answer on who is the real Shiv Sena, how can you go ahead and take these sweeping decisions? Niranjan Shetty.
See, I know Mr. Jayant Menkar from pretty long time. He's been a senior journalist. I would like to, disagree only on one point. What he mentioned, that it is the party chief who decides the leader of the house. I'm extremely sorry. Having a few knowledge on probably as far as the legislature is concerned, if I'm not wrong, he may correct me, Mr. Menkar, that it is the floor, it is the legislator who decides the leader of the house and not the party chief. Technically, it may be true that he sends a message that he would be the leader of the house who will do.
Okay, Jayant Menkar disagrees with you.
Allow me to complete.
Niranjan, my friend, can I respond?
It is the legislator who decides on the floor inside the Vidhan Bhavan, and then he says, if I'm not wrong. You can rectify me if I'm wrong.
Yes, so I think Jayant Menkar disagrees with you. Go ahead.
No, Niranjan, my friend, technically you are wrong. Rather even constitutionally you are wrong. You see, these small groups or even the parties within legislature among the 288, not necessary that all the 288 parties should go democratically, raise your hands and elect your leader. Okay, technically sometimes you may feel that there was election, whatever. But already their group leaders are nominated by the party chief. And in many cases, rather in every case, from BJP to all the smallest parties in India, these legislature party leaders are nominated by the party chief. Let me tell you, in 2002, the Mahabaleshwar conclave of Shiv Sena, what I mentioned, there were 282 national executive committee members. I'm
just not interrupting you. Just for better understanding, I just wanted to know through your itself that my query is, it is the legislators who decide inside once they are elected that who will be the leader. No doubt.
No, not at all.
Who gives direction that he would lead the legislators. But then
not at all.
Am I wrong over there?
Yeah, you are not Niranjan, my friend. You are not on proper. I mean, they are nominated. I will tell you one of the in 2010, 2009, when Chhagan Bhujbal took over as the deputy chief minister, as per what the media reports, Chhagan Bhujbal had got only 6 votes within the party meeting of NCP, whereas Ajit Pawar has got more votes, maximum votes. But ultimately, Sharad Pawar took the decision and nominated Chhagan Bhujbal as deputy chief minister. So this democratically elected person within the party has no value.
This has been a very interesting exchange between Niranjan Shetty and Jayant Menkar, because I think you all are arguing fundamentally on the point, which the Supreme Court is going to be deliberating on the 11th of July.